We're 9 to 5 Solutions, and we're consulting Bangladesh. The economic structure in Bangladesh throughout history has been in the pre-industrial revolution in the 16th century. There was a lot of trading, Portugal trading, specifically under the Grand Trunk Road. Under the reign of Akbar, there was a significant increase in exports, which increased manufacturing and agriculture. But post-industrial revolution, there was a boom in the garment industry, which created labor conflicts. There was also jute trade. Finally, with fossil fuels, they became very popular source of energy, given the significant increase since the Industrial Revolution.
Bangladesh is the 7th largest producer of natural gas in Asia. After the Industrial Revolution, fossil fuel energy consumption has been steadily growing in Bangladesh. And today, Bangladesh contributes about 0.17% of the world's CO2 emissions.
In Bangladesh, there's a big concern for deforestation at an alarming rate of 90% loss of forest. So it's approaching 100% very rapidly. And mangrove deforestation is another specifically big problem. Flooding is magnified in the absence of mangroves, and Bangladesh is at 70% floodplains. Carbon dioxide, there's a decrease in photosynthesis given the increase in deforestation, and the mitigation for this would be a dire need for programs to slow deforestation to a halt, and in fact decrease the rate in the other direction.
Industrial cities in Bangladesh, such as Chittagong, have better quality of living. That includes electricity, gas, and clean water supplies. People in Bangladesh are low compared to the rest of the world when it comes to income and education, which means that they have a very low capacity to adapt and cope with the harmful effects of climate change. The indigenous population of Bangladesh consists of hilly areas, and the economic source is mostly agriculture.
There's some big climate change trade-offs. Economically speaking, rice production. Bangladesh is currently counting on that as a source for internal consumption and external or exports. They're currently 3rd in the world in exports, and the consumption is just very important for Bangladesh. It's 2/3 of the total calorie supply, and half of the protein intake comes from rice. Another problem with climate change would be urbanization. The supply of land and homes would be significantly less given an increased rate, so there could be displacement of people. Transportation, given the flooded roads, could affect the logistics of internal operations. Specifically, you would have to find alternate modes of transportation and travel. Culturally, traditional household ideas are challenged, where the women were to stay home, but now, since there's a need for there's an economic need at home, the women have become more educated, and it's a paradigm shift in the culture. And
So Bangladesh has become very vulnerable due to climate change, one of them being due to the rising sea level. They have very, very low land, and because of this, it's completely wiping out their agriculture, their homes that they live in.
Another vulnerability includes with the sea level rising, it leads to more flooding, causing damage to crops and agriculture, which is what the community depends on to make their money.
Another vulnerability Bangladesh has is due to urbanization. There will be a lower agriculture supply to feed the mass population, and as a result, food deficiency.
Another major deal is with the constant storms and low funding. It causes a lot of damage and devastation to the economy.
Another huge problem Bangladesh faces is disease. They have a pretty, not the best healthcare system as you can imagine, and the death rate is unfortunately high.
But with some vulnerabilities comes opportunities, and one of them being is the water supply. And with the water supply, it opens up a market for hydroelectric power and technology.
So another opportunity is policy transformation. Structuring the political and the parties framework at like back home, and they can all combine to combat climate change and its effects better.
Education is also an opportunity, and with the population concentration, there's a more competent labor force.
So there are also natural gas reserves. These are natural there are also gas reserves that hold natural resources that would allow us to have a more competent labor force.
Another opportunity is within the labor force, and it opens up foreign investment opportunities for better economic conditions.
Bangladesh signed to enter the UNFCCC in June 9, 1992. 2 years later, their entrance was accepted. Bangladesh chooses to join this framework to help its country adjust to climate change and create programs that would help with mitigation.
Bangladesh has been involved in the UNFCCC in various instances. The first one being through NAPA, National Adaptation Program of Action. And this was a framework for climate change issues, and it was an opportunity for Bangladesh to state what their problems are currently in the country. NAPA was established in response to the decision made in Conferences of Parties number 7. Bangladesh joined the RED program in 2010, which is important for them because they're at 90% deforestation, and this was a great opportunity for them to get involved and reduce that rate and, in fact, move in the opposite direction of deforestation. There's buildings of 10 dams, which is very important given the flooding issue that's happened due to the rising sea level and exposed land masses, low land. Improved cooking stove for efficiency and help save fuel and reduce CO2 emissions, and proper vehicle service centers to help maximize efficiency and reduce emissions. Once again, given that they're exposed to deforestation, there's less trees, so they have to be careful with the CO2 emission. why they stand in UNFCCC. They have limited ability to cope with the effects of climate change. They have limited wealth and education, which are key resources to moving forward and mitigating climate change. And along with other countries' involvements, they've depended on aid necessarily. So they're a need country, not necessarily a give country. The involvement in the UNFCCC for Bangladesh has been key given the history of this country. Upon being involved in the UNFCCC, their standard of living has increased. Between 1990 and 2010, life expectancy rose by 10 years. Also, flooding has been a key component. The UNFCCC has been key to reduce the exposure for Bangladesh. Bangladesh's exposure of GDP exposed to flooding is the highest of all countries that are exposed to flooding. So flooding would be catastrophic for their economy. Also, as previously mentioned and emphasized, deforestation is something very key that needs to be addressed. In the UNFCCC, the opportunity to address this has been through the RED program, which Bangladesh has been involved with. Some suggested actions for Bangladesh is to continue to push for an involvement in the UNFCCC. Once again, as emphasized heavily, the RED program is very key. There are short-term consequences that need to be hedged against, which is flooding. So we recommend Bangladesh stay involved and keep getting involved with programs that will help reduce the exposure of their GDP to flooding. As we have analyzed, Bangladesh is a need country. In other words, a country that should request help. They cannot provide help given their economic ranking. They're actually ranked 131 in the world out of 194. There's low financial freedom and very low financial ability for them to provide help to other countries. Thus, they're a need country. An increased presence in the UNFCCC needs to happen. They have not been as active as other countries. Even if they're a need country, they should still become more involved. And they should definitely push for binding proposals of the big countries, which are high emitters and have the opportunity to provide funds for them. And by creating binding proposals, these countries will legally be obligated to participate in this climate change effort.
Okay, so some of the financial costs, externalities, and future implications of global climate change on Bangladesh include flooding, which is associated with rising sea level, and deforestation. The costs, there are more immediate economic sacrifices that would have to be made, funding for dams or other means of flood protection, and the RED program involvement costs, or the cost to turn deforestation around. The benefits they get from this, though, is increased protection for future people, such as flood protection, forest preservation, early investing for benefit of future generations, and so on.
Also can increase the presence in UNFCCC. The financial cost is increase the participation and involvement in short-term run leading the benefits and sacrifice the short-run human resource, possible misallocation of country resource, and then human and economic. The benefit we got is increase the opportunity of the future betterment of the country and more international involvement. And there's some social concern in Bangladesh, such as overpopulation, lack of housing and unemployment, and lack of the adaptable transportation, and the protection of disease, because in Bangladesh they have really bad health care and the water quality is really bad.
Being a LDC means that Bangladesh doesn't have the means to keep up with developed and developing countries, and in order for them to maintain equity, it's only fair to ask these countries that are emitting so much and have really established economies to help Bangladesh grow or slow down with their greenhouse gas emissions. Slow down with the greenhouse gas emissions for the countries that are emitting so much. It isn't fair for Bangladesh to only suffer, but also to not have what it needs to at least stay afloat, considering all of the damage and disasters done from these developed countries. And to keep it fair, helping is like the best recommendation for Bangladesh and their economy.
So like we talked about before, one of the biggest problems that Bangladesh faces with climate change is sea level rise. This impacts people greatly because those who live on the coastlines are losing their homes, and people such as women who are raising children and birthing children may not have the ability to move right away. Also, indigenous people who have built homes on the coastline or maybe don't have enough money to move to the inner cities would face a lot of turmoil. Also, farmers are being impacted greatly by rising sea levels because their crops are being destroyed, and that's what they really rely on for their income. So we believe that more involvement in the UNFCCC with Bangladesh as well as other countries will help them be able to mitigate the harmful effects of climate change, including rising sea levels.